Hello, this is Clarissa Shannon, and I'm the Chocolate Knox's daughter. While you wait for the cross politic to start, enjoy this short clip from the pub.
In this talk, up till now, what we've been hearing a lot is what you need to do, how we need to respond to what's going on in our society, to the renewal of the church and things like that. I'm actually going to take it a step back from there. When you read about all the various tribes of Israel coming to join David, it made a very interesting statement about the tribe of Issachar. It said that the men of Issachar understood their times and what needed to be done in Israel. And what I want to do is to spend a little bit of time talking about understanding our times. We are facing an incredible challenge broadly in the culture right now, but the good news is we've got the solution. We have what the culture is looking for. Now, where I want to start is actually going back about 100 years to this gentleman. That's Max Weber. Max Weber was a sociologist, very important thinker in a lot of ways. Some of you are probably familiar with the idea of the Weber thesis, which is a connection between capitalism and Protestantism, especially Calvinism. That's not what I want to look at, though. This is from a speech that he gave in 1918 that was later printed in the book Science is a Vocation. And this was his assessment of his day in 1918. The fate of our times is characterized by rationalization and intellectualization and, above all, by the disenchantment of the world. Precisely the ultimate and most sublime values have retreated from public life into either the transcendental realm of mystic life or into the brotherliness of direct and personal human relations. It is not accidental that our greatest art is intimate and not monumental. What Weber is saying here, it's kind of a long quote, but the point of this is that in the modern world, in the world of science and bureaucracy and technology, there's no room for enchantment. There's no room. The word that he uses here is really, we translate it into English as disenchantment. The German is literally something like the demagification of the world. It's taking the magic out of it. And what he means then is that there's no meaning, there's no purpose. All there is technique. All there is, well, science. We are left in a world bereft of meaning, bereft of purpose. Now, Weber isn't the first person to have made this observation. It turns out one Friedrich Nietzsche had also talked about it. Although he didn't use the term disenchantment, this is what he had to say. And again, he's reflecting on the impact of modern science, on technology, on the idea that we can actually solve all problems. We can understand everything and solve it using science. He said, God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has, yet owned, has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement? What sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear to be worthy of it? When Nietzsche said God is dead, he did not mean literally that God is dead. What he meant is that transcendence, meaning, purpose, anything above just sort of the brute facts of life has been completely destroyed, has been completely eliminated from modern life by science, by technology, by bureaucracy, by systems, by technique. What Nietzsche meant when he said the death of God is what Weber means when he talks about the disenchantment of the world. Now, the word enchantment, literally, if you break it down into its roots, it means to sing into something. And this was an idea of imbuing it with magic. You know, through song, through music, you could actually imbue something with magic. This is what they used to believe. But we use enchantment in a couple of different ways. We can use it about magic, But we also find the word enchanted. Enchanted could be like an enchanted forest, in which case it is magical, but we could also go to musicals and get some enchanted evening. It's an evening that isn't literally magical, but has something special, something sparkly about it. And of course, you can go from enchanted to enchanting. We could talk about an enchanting young woman. So let's stop for the moment with enchanting. And from enchanting, we can then, an enchanting young woman would frequently be described as charming. By the way, did you know that the word charm really means magic? The charm is magic. It's a way of doing magic. Charming young women are often described as glamorous. Now, we're going to take a little bit of time with glamorous because it turns out that there are a couple of other things that are involved here that are less obvious. But let's just start with the idea of being glamorous. We would usually frequently associate this with, for example,
Legacy media is falling apart, and as it crumbles, a void is opening, a void that we intend to fill. The big legacy news networks currently average just 1.2 million viewers a weeknight, and those numbers are only going to get lower. Legacy media is dying, and the younger generation has moved on. Legacy media panders. Legacy media lies. Legacy media does not know what the truth is, and they don't care about it. Legacy media is a dumpster fire. This is why we few in our wild imaginations have started the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Our goal is to take down the legacy media giant of the last 50 years with our 5 stones. We started in 2016 with our flagship show, Cross Politics. Since those small beginnings, we now air on DirecTV. Our broader podcast network now gets over 4 million downloads a year. And our Fight Laugh Feast pub, which includes TV shows like This America, The Rowdy Christian's Guide, Pastors in Politics, and As the Lord Pleases, with your support, many more to come. Our goal is to become the flagship new media 2.0 network over the next 50 years and take over nightly news, sports, sitcoms, hunting shows, and more, all conveniently stored for you in our Fight Laugh Feast pub. We're already reaching the next generation through our podcast shows on YouTube, X, and our pub, while also tapping into legacy media audiences by airing our shows on TV through DirecTV and Xfinity. We have made a lot of progress with some duct tape and a good bit of intuition and a lot of sweat. And now we need your support more than ever. The TV networks have had such a negative impact on our households, and we're trying, by the grace of God, to put a stop to that. We have the opportunity. We just need the army. Now more than ever, we need you to join our pub to help us reach our goal of 1 million pub supporters in the next 5 years. There's no way around it. Competing with Fox and the Alphabet networks without money is virtually impossible. It's cheap for you to join. And when you do, you're combining your small monthly support with a growing army of like-minded Christians. We have thousands, we need millions. So if you want more of the Alphabet network's misinformation and lies, don't join. But if you want to give us a mere 5 stones, then please join the pub, and together we will take a swing at the head of big media, all the while fighting, laughing, and feasting to the glory of God.
Hey y'all, welcome to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Pastor Toby Chuck Knox and the Water Boy. That feels good to say.
So smooth.
Doesn't that feel good to say?
So smooth when you're here, Knox.
Yeah.
Oh, did I miss something?
Yeah, you missed a show.
And a different Aaron.
Which was a good show.
Maybe missed 2 shows. How many shows did he miss?
I missed probably
It was,
the Monday and then the Thursday.
It was so many, I can't remember.
Right. I'm scarred.
But hey,
That's
just so
how
you guys know, Thursday's show was fire. That show, I pay attention to the numbers. That show's blowing up right now. What'd you guys say?
What did we do on Thursday?
You guys talked about
Thursday.
I
I think
can't
some of the
even remember.
flooding and
I just blocked it out.
Yeah, I
'Cause you weren't here.
I produced it really, really, really
I think
well.
you talked about FEMA.
Uh-huh.
I think you talked about
Yeah.
some of the help that's getting out there to was it North Carolina,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
how FEMA's
It was
money is being
amazing.
used. Yeah,
It was amazing.
billions of dollars being sent over to take care of illegals and not taking care of American folks. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You guys
Yeah,
touched
we
on that.
talked about
Yeah.
that. FEMA.
And-
FEMA's number one goal is diversity and equity. That's their number one goal right now.
Oh yeah, we talked about
I
that.
saw a
Yeah.
clip
Isn't that
talking
crazy?
about making sure that I heard somebody say, "Hey,
Yeah.
there's homosexuals out there." They didn't say that. LGBTQ folks, LGBTQ folks that have a hard time in their lives right now, and this with this whole storm coming,
Yeah.
could you imagine how hard it would be to be LGBTQ
I-
and then not have a house?
Right,
And I was
well-
like,
Well,
who are these people?
yeah, I said that's when it gets dangerous because these people are supposed to be saving lives. They're like, wait a second,
Are you
Are you
LGBTQ?
trans?
are you trans? Are you homosexual? Are you?
I don't like this anthropology.
And then
I
you
don't
say
like
no,
it.
and then the helicopter leaves.
Yeah,
to the next house.
sorry, looking for an oppressed person. All right, guys, you listen to Cross Politics because you take the Dominion mandate seriously. Unsurprisingly, so does Dominion Wealth Strategists. They will help you build a multi-generational legacy with holistic financial strategies that include budgeting, insurance, debt management, retirement planning, estate planning, and more. Dominion Wealth leverages all corners of the financial services industry as independent. Ooh, I'm about to cough. Doesn't happen.
Is that part of the ad?
Yeah, it is. Independent brokerage agents matching you with suitable products and services from dozens of top industry service providers. They educate, advise, and build plans to reduce your donation to Caesar and maximize your gift to God. No matter your tax bracket, they have solutions for every fiscal stage of life and for your children. If you and your spouse want to take dominion over your finances, book a complimentary consultation at www.reformed.money today. Reformed.money. From baptism to burial, Dominion has you covered. Again, that's reformed.money to book a complimentary consultation.
Such a
I
good
like.
ad.
I think they're actually Baptist.
Reformed.money.
Yeah, I think they're Baptist.
But they're
that
covenantal.
tagline's amazing.
Hey,
From baptism to burial.
Yeah.
That means you guys are saying you baptize the kids even though you're Baptist. I'm just saying.
Gabe, we're
Yeah.
trying to keep them.
I love them. They're great.
Money is a tool in the hands of the person who wields it. Money is good for the good it can do, which is why the folks over at Story Real Estate love empowering their team members to make fantastic incomes and through that, a massive impact. At Story Real Estate, a six-figure income is not only achievable, but they have a framework that has achieved those very results time and time again. If you're willing to learn, grow, and work hard, go to storyrealestate.com. Storyrealestate.com, click the menu, and then join our team to apply and begin your path to six figures and a massive
wow.
impact.
They hiring, huh?
No.
Y'all
no.
give me one of them
No,
applications.
no. Hey, look at this. Hey, you might have noticed we got Aaron Youngren in the studio with us. He's a husband to Kayla, father to 3 kids. He's founder and CEO of Great Commission Design, a company whose goal is to better help churches spread the gospel to all corners of the earth. And he's led innovation teams at 2 Fortune 100 companies, Amazon and GE Healthcare. Aaron was a pastor for 9 years at a church in Chicago. It says
I didn't know that either.
church, capital church, a church in Chicago. He's currently the head of product at Red Balloon and the author of the brand new book, Undiscovered. Look at that. Can you see that? Is that a good
Nice
placement?
hardback.
I don't even know if that's a good placement.
Nice
that one?
hardback.
Is that good? Up here.
You like that?
Is
Yeah,
that
there you
better?
go.
Okay. Undiscovered.
Toby's like, pat your head,
next to
rubber
your
belly.
face.
Yeah.
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 So White Sox or Cubs?
Oh.
Cubs, but
Yeah.
I'm not much of a baseball fan, but you kind of had to be
Yeah.
in those years.
You were
Right.
forced to be.
Oh,
Yeah.
forced to be. Forced to be.
Everybody had to be a
Yeah.
Cubs fan during
Yeah.
I was a Cubs fan during those years. Absolutely.
Chicago Bears or
yeah.
Dallas Cowboys?
Chicago Bears or Dallas
I don't
Cowboys?
care very much. I missed sports growing up. I
Okay.
was locked in a closet with an Apple IIc. So sorry.
Chicago Bulls or Dallas Cowboys?
Dallas Mavericks.
Well,
that was the joke. Stop
Yeah.
it.
yeah,
It's always the Bulls.
that's good.
It's always the Bulls.
I was trying to be helpful. So Undiscovered, Adventure, Conquest, and the Search for Great Products. I actually love this cover. You gave me a copy of this book. I didn't bring it today, but I love the fact that you've got this like
Knox lost his.
this
Already.
this
I
map,
just didn't bring it in today.
this like treasure map.
Yeah.
Kind of, it's sort of stylized, and I think is it Genesis? Is there some Genesis text in there?
Correct. Yeah. Well, lots of
Ooh.
scriptures in there.
Did you read that fine print?
I'm so
No.
glad this was not lost on you.
No,
so.
no. I was like, well, you see, Havilah.
Yes.
I'm like,
Gold.
wait a
Hallelujah.
second. The glory of
There you go.
kings. And I'm thinking, okay, this is Genesis. This is Adventure, Conquest, the search for great products, the search for gold.
Let me see that. Let me see. Aaron, I'm sorry, I didn't give you enough credit on this cover because I was like, oh, I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to map some things out. I didn't think you were smart enough to ground this exegesis.
Well, there's a whole book in there, so you don't have to necessarily get stuck on
Wait,
the
is this
cover.
a treasure map and we didn't know it?
Hey, you figure it out later.
Okay.
So without giving away the secret,
Yeah.
what it's still a little bit mysterious. I mean, you got undiscovered adventure, conquest, and the search for great products. That kind of all of a sudden you got a twist there. What's this book about?
So this book, wrote the book for two reasons. The first is the simple fact that most people that I've known over my career don't view going into work on a Monday like today for the white knuckle thrill ride that the Lord intended it to be. Right.
Huh.
So Proverbs 25:2 says that it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
And so God has actually embedded this adventure into the fabric of our world. Right. And part of the story, it seems, of history is for us to go out as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as explorers and discoverers, find those secrets that God has hidden and uncover them, bring them back, give them to our neighbors, right?
Yeah.
And so
sell them to our neighbors.
Sell them,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Sell them, but the Lord also put us in a world full of value, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
selling,
Yeah.
when something sells, that's just an indication to us of the amount that it was a good thing.
It was a good gift.
It was a good.
That's a good thing.
Right. And actually,
Bernie.
in the book, call it a good, right? When
Yeah.
someone starts buying your thing, you know that you've created a good.
Something
That's right.
about you.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, that's what George Gilder says. I mean, George Gilder says that the free economy, free market is basically gift giving economy, and that you come up with a gift to give your neighbor, and they demonstrate the value of that gift by giving you a gift in return.
That's right.
So that you can keep making that gift for the world. What do you, I mean? So that's the goal. The goal of the book is to say what you're doing in your vocation is actually supposed to be part of this adventure in creation, uncovering glory.
That's right.
That God has put here. That's the goal. And you want people to come away from this saying, my job is part of that adventure.
Well, that is part of the goal. Okay. The other reason why I wrote the book is far more practical. Okay. Because in circles like ours, we have a lot of talk about kind of general business principles, good ethics in business, some high level business practices. But if you actually go out and try to start a business in which you're going to sell a thing to a person, to your neighbor, there's this enormous gulf between those general principles and the actual tactical day-to-day tools that you need to pursue and skills that you need to pursue in order to create a thing, right? And that gulf, I find, is often filled with influencers or godless social scientists. In the world of products, it's often filled by the thoughts and systems from people that have a worldview that is utterly unlike ours, right? It's Darwinist or like some strange postmodern, nothing is really true. The actual product managers, if you try to go out and find literature and in managing a product, creating a product or design, it's just filled with all kinds of garbage that we can't track back into our business, take back into our business without consequences.
Can you give an example of give an example of like something that you would hear from one of these sort of pagan gurus, like here's how to make your business run, and maybe something that you give in the book that would be like, here's a more Christian way of approaching this.
Sure. For instance, I actually, so in my last role at GE, I was in charge of
general equity.
That's good. That's good. We can get into that later.
You dropped that name over there. You want to pick that up?
Yeah, that's right. And this small company, GE, General Electric, maybe companies in the world. I would actually sit through product demos in my role as leading analytics for the team, online analytics, in which there was one product that they were trying to sell us a better button on your website, and their way of determining what a better button was to throw 10,000 different styles of buttons out on the internet, picked up from Facebook, by the way. There are around 10 to 20,000 versions of Facebook Live at any time.
Right.
Okay.
Gather as many clicks and signals as they could and come back to us. They came back to us with this like mutant puke green button, horrible font. Maybe it got clicks because everyone wanted to see what would happen, right?
Because it was so ugly.
It was so,
Is this going to blow up or not?
So that's actually the opposite way of how a Christian should think about questions like that. Yes, you should send something out to the world. Yes, you should get feedback. That's perfectly fine. Yes, sometimes the things that you think are going to work don't. But Christians ought to apprentice themselves to the master, right? To the master designer, and be thinking about, how did God create the world? What are principles that I can take from him? So one of the things I do in the book is establish a design system based on the 6 days of creation, right? The 6 days of creation as a grid that you can put any product design through. And so you have to actually think about that.
Right.
What does it mean that God created light first? What does it mean that he created the expanse and made a place for human history to happen that's separate from everything else?
Right.
So it's that.
No, keep going. I'm really interested.
Walk me through.
No, yeah, because now you're getting into the creative side, right?
That's right.
And so everybody's trying to make the creative very mechanical.
Correct.
Right. And they're trying to get, this is the thing. And right now, I think it's part of the algorithm is showing you that it's not. Right. Right. I think they're running into a brick wall. But I'm more interested in how you're thinking about the idea of creation being the foundation for how we look at the creative. So can you walk through the days of creation and apply? I would love to hear that.
Yeah. So let's start with day one. Okay. God creates light. He separates light from darkness. So the principle, just at a high level, that I throw from that, or that I pull from that, is we are very often in a situation as business owners where we know more about the problem that we're trying to solve than our neighbor does, right? That's why we're making a tool. And often it actually comes down to a truth about the problem that they actually don't understand. Yeah. For instance, over at Red Balloon, we help employers hire, right? Another name drop.
Yeah, we got a free plug, Red Balloon.
That's right. So we're trying to help people hire. In fact, we know that employers are reluctant to take the amount of time that is required in hiring in a modern litigious environment. We have to signal that to them somehow. So one of the first questions we ask is, how do you help the person, how do you help your neighbor understand the truth of this problem that you're trying to solve? How do you shed light on the problem that you're trying to solve? That's number one priority for the thing that you create or make. Number two, so day two, God creates the expanse, right? And he creates this massive space that's, so massive, it's hard for us not to think of it as just completely infinite. But before he puts anything in it, he creates this space. He's actually creating a place, right? A place for human history to happen. Now, most of our neighbors are walking through their life and their reality is so cluttered, right? It's so unfocused. I got things going off in my pocket. I got news bombarding me all the time. So a question you can ask yourself is, how do I make the right kind of space and environment? This is actually a very practical design tool, how can I actually make some white space around this thing, around this experience, if you're designing an experience, or visual space, so that this person has room to even just understand this thing that I want them to understand. Right.
So is this kind of like clarity, creating the visibility of the diamond? It looks better on the black backdrop.
That's right. That's right. Exactly like that. Or if you're creating a web page, you need to You need to have some white space in there. Everybody remembers MySpace ugly, right? When there's just
Cluttered.
crap everywhere and cluttered.
Yeah.
Is your account
You
still live?
don't want that. I go there every day. Every day. Okay, so then let's move forward. Day 3, God creates a habitation. He creates all of these things that give the creatures that are to come food and shelter, right? And so anyone who's designed whether you're designing a film or you're designing a book or anything you're designing, you know that you have to kind of lead people along. There's this thing that's true with anything that you design. You have to make something usable, and it has to be usable in doses, kind of like feeding someone, right? You have to actually, have an environment in which they can thrive. Again, you also have to have a little bit of protection of them from all of the things that you know about their problem. Your job is to reduce all of that, protect them from it, and give them a space. With me so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the dry
It's not
ground.
a safe space.
Next day, go ahead.
That was the dry ground, separated the
That's
waters
right.
from the dry ground. This
That's
is a
right.
place where they can live.
Even the fact that there's dry ground, right?
Yeah.
And how much that simplifies our existence. If you think about if we could fly, everyone wants to fly, right? But the fact that there's dry ground means that we actually have to encounter each other. These are not strictly biblical principles. These are just things that I'm thinking when I'm
this is
trying
great
to observe.
Yeah.
But it means that we have to encounter each other in a controlled fashion. It'd be different than if we could just fly in every direction,
Right.
or go in like fish, right, in water, go wherever we
So
want.
I want to know what you do with the sun, moon, and stars, though, because that's day 4. So what?
That's one of my favorites. So why were those created? We're explicitly told.
Yeah, to rule the day and the night,
Rule the day and the night,
and
and
times
help us-
and seasons.
Yes. Okay. So we are horrible about time, right? We have a horrible sense of time.
Well, speak for yourself.
Everyone, everyone has had that experience where you're working really hard on something. You have a deadline. You look up. Okay, I got to be there at 2:00. Just give me 5 more minutes. I'm just gonna, really quick pound away out this email. And then all of a sudden it's 2:10. Right? Where did the time go? It's because we are not great with time. We're finite human beings, and part of our finitude is our grasp and understanding of time.
Yeah.
Now, certain products, certain experiences know this and exploit it regularly, right? So Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Anything that I can do to keep you scrolling, to keep you
doom
going.
scrolling.
That's right. That's right. And it's like, we started with boring stories, and then it knows that I'm about to jump, and all of a sudden there's like a purple frog on fire or something that I have to stay engaged. Why can't we design products that help people with time, right? You go into a department store, you're never going to see a clock, right? They want to keep you there because they know you're bad at
the
time.
Lotus Room.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what if someone, a believer made a social media app where it got harder and harder and more boring as you went on, because, sending you a subtle signal, you got to get on with your life,
I
bro.
don't like that idea.
Okay.
Hey, I mean, if I'm putting ads on that social media platform, I want you. Well, can I push back a little bit
Yeah,
here?
please.
Because I think your principle is still being had by someone like Facebook or X, where they are controlling the time. They take this principle seriously. They're controlling the time to keep you here as much as possible. So they're using your principle, but for their benefit.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And that's what I mean by we want to, in neighbor love, we want to be conscious of the fact that our neighbors are not very good with time. And it's just little things like, electric toothbrush. I don't know if you've ever asked your dentist, like, is this electric toothbrush better for me, or should I just do the analog kind?
Most of them will tell you don't use it.
Every time I've talked to a hygienist, they've said, well, I don't, to be honest, I don't love it, but I do recommend it because people have such a hard time brushing their teeth for 2 minutes, right? They say, brush your teeth for 2 minutes.
That buzzer goes off after the 2 minutes.
That's right. That's right. So here you have a product helping with time. Rule is another thing that in design is obviously very important. You can't have 13 things a person is supposed to do. You need to have, let them have 1 or 2 things that they're supposed to do, so that they don't get distracted.
Yeah. I think about day and night. I think maybe even making distinctions, doing, having a schedule, having a plan.
There's certain things you do a day, there's certain things you do an evening.
That's right.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. And this goes back to, again, creatives, because one of the things that I've noticed is the creative world doesn't have a time frame. So if you're making music or if you're doing art, most of the times they want to be in an isolated environment where they can't tell day from night.
Yep.
So they can work continually without being interrupted, right? To try and get there. That's what I'd like to do, actually. But just because I'm trying to stay focused and not let time control me.
That's right. That's right. So in certain respects, that's a feature for us. The fact that we can do deep work, the fact that we can achieve deep focus, the fact that we can lose time for a while is fine. It's just that we want to be conscious of that when we're designing things for other people, right?
That's helpful. That's really good. All right.
Day 5.
Birds and fish.
Yes.
Right.
Why did the Lord make so many kinds of animals? Right? Yeah. Have you thought about that? Like,
he likes animals.
He likes animals.
He
likes animals.
Even the ugly ones.
There are.
He likes bugs.
What's an ugly one?
He likes bugs.
Snakes.
Right. Right. Why? There's a certain sense in which experiences that we have are simply intended to glorify God, right? God could have made 4 animal types and all of them useful and utilitarian. And instead we have this world where strange birds court each other with, fluorescent wings and do mating dances and all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
And the only answer I can come up with for that is that the Lord delights in them and he wants us to delight in them.
Right.
At the same time, you have oxen with a big convenient hump right on their back that are intended to help us work. One of the things that is hard, going back to creatives, right? I think as people who are designing something for others, which is the calling of this whole thing, right? We're designing something for the good of others. We want to understand, am I designing something for everyday use? And if so, actually the job of that product is to get out of the way, right? I worked at Amazon.com around the time we were coming out with the Kindle. And one of the things Jeff said in one of our big all hands that always stuck with me was the book is a marvelous piece of technology because it gets out of the way.
Right.
You don't notice it. Like you get a couple of pages into a good book and I'm not reading a book anymore. I'm not even conscious
You're in
of
a
this
world.
piece of technology that's in my hands. Whereas sometimes if you read on a device, on an iPad or a phone or anything else, you kind of are, right?
Yeah.
There's obstructions there. So sometimes the job of the product is to get out of the way. Other times, the job of the product, especially if it's a highlight, right? If it's a amuse-bouche at a restaurant, or if it's the crowning part of some product experience, it is drawing attention to itself. It should delight. We should think deeply about what is the delightful part of this and spend extra time on that, because that's what the Lord did in our world. It's not just a utilitarian world. Not even our fallen world is a utilitarian world. There's beauty all over.
Right. That's day 5. So just the diversity of the animal kingdom kinds. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
And then day 6.
And then day 6, the point that I really wanted to emphasize in my book is if we have a vision for helping our neighbors take dominion, like, does this actually help my neighbor take dominion? And if we ask that question deeply, when we are building products, services, and experiences, I think that is going to help guide us through a lot of sticky questions, right? So, I'll just take our business for an example that we've been building for the last 3 years, Red Balloon. We're trying to help people hire great employees. There's a way to do that where we are trying to see what we can get out of it, or where we're not exactly concerned with the outcome that they're going to get out of it. But if our vision is actually to help them build the best company that they can build, to propel them forward, we're going to make a certain set of decisions that we wouldn't otherwise make.
Right.
And we're going to structure our business in a way that we couldn't otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring this where
Wait,
the
wait,
rubber
wait,
meets
wait.
the road.
There's 7
What?
days in a week, right?
Well, seventh rest.
The seventh rest,
Yeah.
the seventh rest. And I don't really treat that in
Oh,
the
you
book.
forgot about the Sabbath.
I didn't forget about the Sabbath. We're not working on the Sabbath, right?
But there has to be.
I think-
Once you
yes.
design something this good,
Yes.
you're resting.
No,
You're
no.
resting.
The thing that I do mention there that I think should, anytime we're talking about these practical philosophies that we always have to emphasize, is that it all rests in the Lord's hands, right?
Mhm.
It all rests in the Lord's hands. We're to work. We're to do all of that. I was just talking about the business that we're building. If you are not, and this is part of why it's such a big deal to approach your work as a white knuckle adventure. Because if it does not require faith, you are probably not ambitious enough.
That's right.
You do
That's
all
right.
this hard work and you lay your plans and you build things and it's exciting, right? It should require faith still at the end of the day.
Right.
And you can have all the tools you want. You can listen to all the influencers and, I just closed my 7th business for $20 million. Listen to all those folks you want. At the end of the day, Christians have to operate on faith.
Yeah.
So there's your rest.
I didn't write the book, but if you want to ask me how to work on the 7th, how to make the 7th work, I can help you with that too.
Okay. I will afterwards.
I just would have
Here we
said
go.
chapter 7. It's all worship. You know what I'm saying? It's all
Okay,
worship.
there you
right?
go.
There
you go.
Do all for the glory.
Just
I love it.
7 pages, W.
I'm
And the
gonna
next
have-
page O, the next page R.
The revised edition is coming soon.
Appendix.
Forward by
Chop the knots.
knots.
Put it on worship.
That's really
Right.
good. This is a paradigm shift.
Oh,
This really
nice.
is. I think this is fantastic. I'm already in my head. I'm applying so many things that you've already said. That's good. Anyway,
Yeah, I'm just
great.
thinking like, in the .com era, there was all this innovation.
Yep.
And a lot of companies failed.
Mhm.
A lot
Mhm.
of
Right.
money. My brother-in-law affectionately calls it the .boom era.
Yep.
Yeah.
And-
Gold rush era.
or .boom rush, whatever,
Yeah.
And it seemed like people got into this frenzy because the internet became a thing, and then they started seeing all the uses for it, and then but no one, it's kind of like podcasting a little bit. No one had figured out how to make money off it.
Right.
Everyone came up with all these great ideas. They got investors to invest in it, but they hadn't figured out the other side of it. And so it seems like a lot of product development is that.
That's
not
right.
not just having the product idea and kind of going through your 6-day process,
Right.
but like you got to turn that corner to like you got to start making money now.
That's right.
And that's why a lot of businesses failed in the
Well,
.com era.
I think that is symptomatic of a larger problem.
Mhm.
I talked about the failure of the Christian business imagination. Let's talk about the failure of the overall business imagination.
Mhm.
For the last, we can call it maybe the last 100 years. It probably is a little bit more than that. I would argue that the imagination of entrepreneurs has been dominated by something that I call the idea,
Mhm.
right? So any company that you like, go and check out the origin story.
Mhm.
Almost universally, it's going to go something like this. I was walking down the street and I noticed insert problem.
Yeah.
And then I had the idea, right? And that is the thing that entrepreneurs often chase, right? Is that magic moment.
Mhm.
I have the big idea.
Mhm.
That big idea is going to turn into a unicorn someday. So it's Travis Kalanick walking down the street and he's trying to hail a taxi, and then he pulls out his phone and he realizes, oh, what if I could just press a button? Or it's Brian Chesky. They're saying, how can we make some quick money? We'll put an air mattress in our apartment and we'll charge people for it. And then there's the birth of Airbnb. I had this idea.
I'm with you
Okay.
so far.
Okay, this is good.
Gabe likes this game.
Yeah. So ideas, our ideas bad? No, obviously they're not bad. But in our quick fix, immediate return culture, they tend to, and especially in startup circles, Silicon Valley types, or even entrepreneurs, they tend to be almost worshipped,
Mhm.
right? To a degree that I find very unbiblical.
Mhm.
Okay, because at the end of the day, if you have this idea that you're chasing, every 5 years you're dousing your wife in kerosene and setting her on fire and sending her off, your kids are transing out and you don't care, right? You're burning up everyone around you, alienating them in pursuit of this idea. The way that you get traction around this idea is, it becomes a mantra in your company. This particular idea that you're chasing, that is something other than worship of God. It's worship of someone, right?
Right.
It's worship of someone. And so you're absolutely right. The failure rate for startups is 90%. Whereas if you go down the street, less reward. But if you're going to make Joe's Auto Shop, the success rate of those is around 30%, right? For a small business. 90% of startups fail. And there have been several studies that say the reason why startups fail, the main reason is down the road, they discover no one actually wanted their product.
Right.
Right. There wasn't an actual there.
Yeah.
So the reason why I bring up kind of the .com thing is because now we got AI. AI is kind of like, in some sense, like the new .com, where
It's better.
It's very much like that, I believe.
Yeah. Well, and you have a lot of, we're constantly looking at AI products here. Like, how can they help us do this, or what, processes better and all that stuff. And
how can we have less employees?
I've gone through so many where I'll sign up for the first week and I'll be like, I see what they're trying to do, but it's not close yet. It's not there. It's not there. It's not taking my money. So I want you to answer this question first, and then I got to follow up here. But how are you sorting through AI kind of through this grid that you're talking about?
I would love for the Christian discussion of AI to sound and feel very distinct from the secular discussion of AI. And I'm not so sure it does.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Explain that to me.
So when I hear Christians talk about AI, I hear some general categories. Number one, does it work? That's fine. That's fine. Going out and looking at the tools, does it work?
Yeah.
Number two, is it moral? Right. Well, this is not a particularly Christian discussion unless we're attaching actual Christian morals to the discussion. Yeah. And in order to do that, we're going to have to get way down in the weeds. We're going to have to become more expert than we are today, or than I think that we are today, in the actual underlying technology. We're going to have to start applying general equity principles to the actual use of to the actual use of AI. And I'm not so sure we are. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I do still hear a lot of the doomsday rhetoric that is dominant in worldly circles today, which I think is just incompatible with our worldview. So we are in a moment where the central myth that we humans are a clump of cells with electrons firing around, just a big computer. That is reflected, I think, in this petrifying fear of AI that is everywhere right now, right? Because if we think that's all we are, of course, the moment we build a bigger, more powerful, more electrons, computer, of course that thing is going to take over from us, and we will see it as a god. Yeah. Right.
I'm glad you kind of took that angle on that, because I think this is 2 years ago where Tucker Carlson, maybe it's 3, where Tucker Carlson was on.
It's probably 3 now.
Ben Shapiro, and go ahead and bring up the interview, Jacob, and Tucker actually kind of surprised me with his thoughts on AI. And here Ben will ask the question and Tucker will respond.
The question is, when the pedal hits the metal, like you talk in the book about technology and how it's shifting and taking away jobs from folks. Yes. And you make specific reference to truck driving and the fact that there are going to be these automated cars on the roads. So would you, Tucker Carlson, be in favor of restrictions on the ability of trucking companies to use this sort of technology specifically to, sort of artificially maintain the number of jobs that are available in the trucking industry?
Are you joking? In a second. In a second. In other words, if I were president, when I say to DOT, Department of Transportation, We're not letting driverless trucks on the road, period. Why? Really simple. Driving for a living is the single most common job for high school educated men in this country, in all 50 states. By the way, that's the same group whose wages have gone down by 11% over the past 30 years. The social cost of eliminating their jobs in a 10-year span, 5-year span, 30-year span is so high that it's not sustainable. So the greater good is protecting your citizens from, look, capitalism is the best economic system I can think of, I think that anyone's ever thought of, but that doesn't mean that it's a religion and everything about it is good.
No, but
There's no Nicene Creed of capitalism that I have to buy into. What I care about is living in a country where, decent people can live happy lives, actually. And so, no, I would say immediately, no, are you joking? And I maybe would make up some pretext for public consumption, like, oh, they're dangerous. The technology is not quite finessed. No. But the truth would be, I don't want to put 10 million men out of work because you're going to have 10 million dead families, and the cascading effect from that will wreck your country.
So first, I think that was before Tucker found Zen. It looks kind of ticked at Ben Shapiro for that question or whatever. So there's a couple things there, but one thing I do want to clarify is later on Tucker clarified and said that I'm not against AI and it being properly employed maybe over a space of time in the trucker industry might be okay, but I don't want to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour with AI in the trucker industry and wiping out all these jobs. So he did later clarify that. Kind of sounded a little more commie than I would have liked, but what are your thoughts on kind of, because that what Tucker's getting at there is like the practical ramifications of AI. That anyways, I'll let you take that.
Yeah. So, this actually brings out a good point, and I think I actually do agree with you more. It's this moment that we're in is probably a little less like the .com boom, and probably a little bit more like early industrial revolution and Western expansion, because in that time period, you did have the kind of creative destruction that is serious, right? You had, all of the sudden networks that were not linked at all. Towns that were not linked at all are now linked. And the guy who can make what I make for $1, and sell it for $1 is selling it now for 10 cents. And now what do I do? I do think that kind of thing is going to happen. And I would make a distinction here between how would I want a nearly universal Christian society in the future to deal with that kind of creative destruction thoughtfully versus how should it happen right now? Our solution right now seems to be, let's take this, one of the most powerful things we've discovered in the last 100 years
or longer,
or longer.
Yes.
And let's just put that in the hands of the government to decide what is an appropriate speed,
preach,
what is an appropriate use. And I think that is just completely wrong-headed. And what I would argue is, we would want laws that are, we do want laws regarding AI, right? And we ought to derive those from Scripture. But I would look a lot more toward the ox goring the neighbor type of principles. So things that happen retroactively. Justice that happens retroactively after the fact, rather than, increased regulation. So putting this powerful tool in the hands of the government.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So can you work through some of the ox goring individual principle? What do you mean by that? Because I don't think I understand completely.
So again, I hate to keep referring to this brilliant and groundbreaking book,
which is available right now on Amazon, right? Somebody can get it.
Yeah.
But that's what I outline in the book just a simple framework. I call it the DAGI framework. So domitable, adaptable, autonomous, generative intelligences, right? And one of the things that I argue is that we already have the thing that we fear in our world, okay? So we are very frightened of an intelligence that is generative, that adapts to its environment, that thinks without us, Okay. They're called animals, right? And
I thought you were talking about the federal government. I agree with you. Go ahead.
yeah, they're called animals. So maybe that's a starting point for how we can think about these intelligences that we would create, right? So I have an ox. I'm using my ox. My ox goes out and gores someone, maybe because my fence wasn't wasn't built properly. That is so the first step we would take is kill the ox, right?
Right.
And so if you have a generative AI and it is not under your dominion, right? So that's the D in doggy, domitable. If it is not under your dominion, you don't get to have that AI anymore. And we take it out because it did something unpredictable. And then if it does it a second time, you go off in a corner and you have some basement bunker and you create the same thing again and it gores someone again. It causes massive destruction.
Then we take out your bunker.
Then we take out your bunker with
the
you in it.
Yeah.
That's well, seriously
That's right.
though, because
I'm not
it
even
will get
joking.
serious in a hurry.
Yeah.
Right. This is all getting serious in a hurry. In other words, it's holding the individual responsible. And this is where we get into some real situations with autonomous driving and things like that. Who is actually at fault?
Yep.
That fault is distributed in a corporate structure.
Yep.
Currently, right now, that is not, ultimately going to be a good thing, I think. But for the solution to be, let's take all of that and just kind of like give it to the government, give it to, I don't know, do we perceive that they're the smartest people in the room? Take it into the top floor of some collective somewhere to govern us. I think that's the wrong move. And part of the reason why, just before we dive into it further, part of the reason why is we actually need the agility as citizens to become expert in these things, right? We actually need the ability as citizens to run ahead, to gain mastery and dominion over these things so that we can use them justly. We may have to use them justly in combat.
Well, and that's part of why you see Elon doing what he did.
That's right.
Because OpenAI, which he supported in the beginning, which OpenAI, by the way, is ChatGPT, everybody. He wanted it to be an open source environment that every individual had access to be able to engage with for that very reason.
Right.
And when they became closed or privatized, he was like, yeah, I don't like that because it limits the amount of people to be able to have access to this tool, which is why Grok and Twitter, he opened up and did that because so that people could use it openly. And he spent more money than I think about anybody on GPUs from NVIDIA to be able to do this. And so and of course he's has all the robots and everything. He's trying to work with that as well. But I think he understands that principle.
That's right.
And you said something earlier, I think that was really important. Everybody is so concerned about the fear of this, which I get. If we have more biblical laws and we understand things the way that you're talking about, then we know how to have wisdom in dealing with this, right? That's what happens with God's law. You understand how to rightly divide things and then make judgments. When you, but when we don't, then this gets out of hand. So like you said earlier, the idea that someone can make something faster than you, maybe even better, and sell it for cheaper. And all the business guys freak out.
Right.
But we're so afraid we didn't think about, wait, an individual who doesn't have a large income now has access to something that they wouldn't have had access to before. Right. And now their budget allows them to be a part of society in a way that they couldn't have been before, which they then can create healthier families and create more value for everybody else in society, versus creating this large legislative process that only allows a certain amount of people to be involved in the market. And now we have fascism.
That's right. That's right.
And so when I look at AI right now, I'm looking at opportunity for people who are in the middle of poor economic environments, having access to a tool to do things they couldn't do before and create businesses that they wouldn't have had access to create before, to try and create value for other people in a free market.
Right.
And everybody's so afraid that they don't say, well, hold on, who's going to really be helped at the end of the day with these tools? Right. And why don't we punish the people who are doing bad things, because we already have laws to do that. Right. We have a lot of, if you autonomous cars, for instance, well, somebody owns it. Somebody's responsible for what it's doing and how it's operating. We can adjudicate the case righteously, make the judgments and punish the people and make them pay restitution for what they've done. Right. That's not new. Right. And so, it drives me nuts that people are so afraid they can't see the lovely benefits that come along with this.
If we cower in fear, two things are going to happen. Number one, we're going to miss out on all the opportunities that are out there, just like you said. And there are genuine opportunities, and there are genuine opportunities for believers to make things that are different and substantially better, right?
Oh yeah.
Through all of that. But the second thing is, the forces of evil are not going to miss out on that opportunity.
You better believe it.
That's true.
Okay, because as much as you
Come
want
on
to, as much as you want to govern these massive corporations like OpenAI, look, the open source versions of all of these models are like 2 steps behind the corporate versions that you buy. Okay, meaning it is an open secret. You're not going to be able to put that Pandora back in the box, right? You're not going to be able to do it. It is here, and on the open source market, it's just going to keep going. The other thing that we really need to think about is, rather than fearing the destructive power of AI, can we not think of a good use for that destructive power, right? We invented rockets. Rockets take out bad guys. Nobody's freaked out that there are rockets. Well, Christians aren't, because we know we can use them, put them to good use.
Dominion on Mars.
What's that?
Dominion on Mars.
Dominion on Mars, exactly. Or to take out a tyrant, right? Or to take out a tyrant. So the question is, can we not think of a positive, destructive purpose for AI? One of the things that I say in my book is, what if one of our bright young engineer friends created a pornography eating virus that was adaptable and intelligent, and in 30 minutes, all of the shame of all of those mothers and sisters and daughters was wiped out, so that any time you had digital pornography, it just got eaten by this AI powered virus. Well, that would certainly be illegal, right? Because you're talking about property, you're talking about all of these things. But let's say we had a respite for 50 years where they couldn't figure out how to get rid of this stupid thing, right? And just the whole world had a break from digital pornography at their fingertips.
And you start having productive men in this world.
Right.
Now you got to figure out how to talk to a woman.
So yeah, that's right. So I think we just need to expand our imagination for the possibility of this moment.
I think, though, the concern, and I think Tucker hits it here, is the jobs thing.
Sure.
Because you have jobs that will be lost, and a lot of people are really concerned about their jobs. How do you respond to this? Is going to transform economically a whole society, and we're going to lose a lot of jobs in the process.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you said before, the opportunities for education is really big and shouldn't be overlooked. So in areas where people do need retraining, that retraining is going to be a lot easier than ever. But here again, I don't know what to do other than to look forward and say, how in a neighbor-loving society where everyone was looking out for their neighbors when things like this happen, because they will, God willing, they will happen, right? How would we handle a market force that was so creatively destructive, where just businesses everywhere were shuttering because this new thing is here and they are literally obsolete? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know,
like
how
MP3s over CDs, or
I would think,
or CDs over records, or records over.
Back to the Industrial Revolution, you literally had whole towns that were reliant on this plant that just went under. Right?
I can go ahead.
I guess. I mean, I want to go back to Genesis, and I want to say, so God created in 6 days, and established this pattern at the very, very beginning, where he says, where he creates this universe, and then loads it with glory, all this stuff we cannot fathom. So number one, I think you got to remember, so God created the world. We're not Darwinists, and this is one of those places where we need to begin with proper presuppositions. That means this world was made for humanity. The universe was made for people who bear God's image. Now, that doesn't mean we can't be foolish and we can't be destructive in sinful ways in certain respects, but it was made for us, and we were made to be creative. We were made to invent like God invents, which means we were made for new inventions to displace old ones. Right. That's all part of the design,
like the husk of a corn
of the universe. That would be one big thing. But then I think I actually also think this goes back to your white knuckle adventure stuff. It's that's actually part of it. part of it is God doesn't want us. I think this is even modeled in the first week of creation. I've sometimes pointed out that God's perfect. He could have made everything in one instant.
Yeah. Right.
And instead he's like, let's walk this out.
Slow walk it.
Yeah. We're going to do one day at a time, 6 days.
Just to show you I'm still powerful.
Yeah. But it's like, but each day he like, there's light and darkness. And he's like, that's good.
Yeah.
Evening and morning was the first day.
Yeah.
And then comes back a second day. And if you're like me and you make something, you're like, don't touch it.
Yeah.
Right.
And he comes back and he's like, nah,
Yeah.
let's put something in the middle.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and then he comes back a third day and he's like, let's make some dirt and some plants and some trees and some water over there. And then you're like, okay, just leave it. It's probably good, God. It's probably good. And God goes, no. What we need is a lot of fish and a lot of birds, and we got to have sun, moon, stars, and a lot of bugs and a lot of animals.
And they're pooping everywhere.
Yeah. But it's like God, he himself is embodying, like, even what he made, he displaces.
Yeah.
And says, I want to fill this with, bugs.
Including Adam's rib.
Yeah, no,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, but I think that means then that we are to embrace that. Like God pivots in a sense. Like obviously he's omniscient and knows everything, but like he's like, okay, now let's do something different today.
Yeah.
Now let's do something different today.
Yeah.
And he wants us to learn to pivot like that, which I think is included in when you have 90% of startups failing.
Yeah.
That means that 90% of people have to pivot.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this earlier when you were talking, and I didn't get a chance to bring it up because Gabe just takes over the show and he just runs things.
Yeah.
It's true. But the idea, guys, the people like I had this dream and I had the idea and I did the idea and they idolize this idea. I was trying to remember, I'm racking my brain for the name of this book I read a while ago and I can't remember it. I think Luke Jankovic recommended it. But it's a story of a lot of different businesses that are full of pivots. How the first idea, it's like a guy tries to invent a washing machine and it doesn't work, and then in the process of doing that, he finds this piece of metal in some place and he could do something else with that metal, and then it turns out he makes popcorn machines, and then it's like the ability to be creative on the fly.
Yeah.
Is also part of the image of God and part of
the fun,
part of the white knuckle adventure, I think, also where the ability to pivot, the ability to say, okay, that didn't work. That isn't the gift that my neighbors need, but I've got this. And so I think the same thing goes back to your conversation.
Well, how many garage business that started out of the garage went through that process?
Right. And it's like 5 different things over the course of these different years.
And
the thing that you thought you were going to do, you don't end up doing. And I think that's part of the answer to Tucker, which I think that he was really, really short-sighted. And I'm glad to hear that maybe he softened his answer a little bit, which is like, yeah, I mean, we want to be good neighbors. And I think that would mean giving people time to try to figure out what the next thing is. But I don't think that means you should then retard innovation, because what you're actually doing if you're just trying to keep a bunch of people on driving truck, like their gifts could be used for something good somewhere else.
So
and when it's no longer needed, like that energy needs to be pushed to do something else.
That's right. I always want to ask, like, okay, so you're against technology. You want to go back to a simpler time. What about the time before there were saws, right? Let's go back to the time when people were chopping wood with their hands.
You know how many people lost their jobs because of electric saws?
That's right. That's right.
Gas-powered saws.
Yeah.
So I would hope, and if in this glorious future we're discussing, we're also in the now, but in the glorious future, I would hope that those truck drivers would receive the grace of that moment, right? Would receive it with calm and trust in the Lord. And be freed up for other things. I was just talking to a guy who creates pizza automation robots in Seattle the other day. And the thing that's surprising about what those robots do for his customers is they allow them to focus more on the customer service, focus more on building a great experience, focus more on the ingredient quality, focus more on getting it just right.
Yeah. I was thinking about, even with Tucker's, I like a lot of things about what Tucker generally has to say, but in the moment, in his ferocity, as Gabe was just like, has he found Zen yet? But it's like it feels rather condescending, to talk about all these high school educated men as if they couldn't possibly do anything else.
Yeah,
like no, they're made in the image of God.
What's wrong with high school education? I mean, today's high school education. Anyway, go ahead.
But like they can pivot. They're made for pivot. They're made for creativity. They're made for ingenuity. And as you all are intimating, this has happened so many times.
So many stories.
There's so many stories, and technology comes, and yes, it displaces certain work, but in that very displacement, it forces people to grab hold of the adventure, figure out, how do I make it work? How do I provide for my loved ones? And in that moment, back to the creativity thing. I mean, it's necessity is the mother of invention. I mean, and it's like when you need it to happen. I mean, I remember hearing Nate's story, Nate Wilson, about I was thinking about him learning to write, like his first novel. I'm probably forgetting some of the details, but in my head, it's this story of him, like this young dad, this young marriage, and he's like desperately trying to make money. He's staying up late. He's like and finally like cranks out this first novel, Lee Pike Ridge, that Aaron, then your brother, pushes to Random House or wherever. Yeah. And but it's like he like desperately wanted to provide for his family, and wanted to write a novel. And but it's like sometimes it's in that desperation of I'm losing my job. Yeah. I've got to do something else. I don't want, what is it going to be? And it's in that moment where God is at work in you, making you the kind of person that's more like him, that's ready for the next thing.
Undiscovered, Aaron Youngren.
Is it Amazon? Can we get it at Amazon?
Amazon.com.
All right. Okay.
All right. Go get it. Fantastic book. Fantastic conversation, too. Thank you.
Mine wasn't just getting started to me. Yeah. I wrote down a bunch of notes.
It was just afterwards, yeah. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.
When I grow up, I want to work for a woke company, like super woke.
When I grow up,
I want to be hired based on what I look like.
I want to be judged
by my political beliefs.
I want to be a conformist.
When I grow up, I want to be offended
by my coworkers and walk around the office on eggshells. When I grow up, I want to weaponize my pronouns. What are pronouns?
It's time to grow up and get back to work. Introducing the #1 woke-free job board, redballoon.work.